Okay, so that's number five. What technique would you recommend to help interviewers remember a word, work process, or an incident? When you run out of time during an interview, how would you select the question to ask? I've got the questions written down, and they're usually listed in a matter of priority. And I've had to do this. I've had to do this because I've interviewed several people, and they've said, "Oh, I've really got to go," because when I asked them for the interview, I said it'll be 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's normally longer because people talk. And interspersed with the formal questions, people will add conversations about their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to stop it. Okay, so the man said, yeah, oh yeah, that question reminds me. I took my daughter to the show last week. So what do you say? Stop it? No, you listen, but again, it extends the time.
Right.
Okay, um, so I begin to whittle away because I've got a list of questions. Then, as I see the time going by, and as a person says, "Oh my heavens, I've only got 15 more minutes to talk to you," then I begin to look at the questions at the bottom and see which ones I can omit.
Okay.
Um, because, and this is the importance of having a pad. I keep a pad next to the formal questions. Because in talking, sometimes they will answer the questions at the end of the list. So I won't have to ask them. Without my asking, they have already answered it. So what I'll do, I'll make a note of that, so that it won't be detrimental to me down the end of the interview schedule when the time goes out, because I've already got the answer. And that's the technique I have used. Um, or I have said, I don't know whether this is a good idea, uh, when they've said, I've only got 15, 20 minutes to go, I said, could you answer in one sentence? And sometimes the answers don't require more than one sentence.
Right.
Uh, I don't like that technique because when I write up the report, I like to know all of the responses that they have made. Okay? So just answering that sentence is never satisfactory to me, because answering if their entire answers placed in perspective will give me a better idea of who that person is and what he or she is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the point of the interview, you know? So that's why I keep a pencil and pad next to me, and as they speak, I jot things down.
Mm-hmm.
I jot down their expressions. Of course, you're not supposed to let them see all this stuff, but I do that because it gives me a better idea of how they were responding to particular questions. And sometimes individuals become very animated when certain questions are asked, which means it's the kind of person that they like.
Okay.
So we have to, in a way, be psychologists too. We're looking at them and we're getting their response. And we have to know what questions make them a little, not angry, but a little ticked off. Because it tells us something about that question and how and why they relate to that question with anger. It could be because of co-workers they've had in that group. It could be because they've had meddlesome students. So I might ask, those not on the questionnaire, you seem to have responded very angry to that question. Why is it? Could you relate an experience? So everything you have is very important for you as an interviewer because it gives you a picture of the person in addition to how they respond to the formal. And I find that to be very important. How would you stop the interviewee from elaborating on a point without being rude if you're interested? We talked about that.
Right.
Yeah, it's difficult, but again, sometimes some of the answers are more interesting than the formal ones that you have. And that's interesting. That's very important. That's what I did. Is keeping a note during an interview to write poetry? Instead of the interview. No, I don't think so. I mean, unless you are ignoring, see, the point is to look at the person you're interviewing. And you can write notes without having to do this. Now, if they see you doing this, it's a different thing. If you're looking at them and just jotting things, it won't make a difference. And I've had people who have been critical of people who've interviewed them because while they're talking, they're not looking at them, they're looking at, they're writing notes. I think that's kind of rude, personally. How important is eye contact with the interviewer? Very important. It's important for us as interviewers to maintain that eye contact. What I've found many times, and this could be a gender thing, particularly younger women. Older women, some don't like to make continual eye contact. Could be for a variety of reasons, okay? And I was not offended at all. I understand that. And there's a difference between making eye contact and staring. I think one should make that clear distinction between making eye contact and staring. Staring makes people feel very uneasy, as it should, because you shouldn't stare. And the interviewer should know the difference between being polite and making eye contact and then staring. So I think it's a very clear distinction here. What body languages from interviewers should the interviewer keep an eye on doing? I think, as I mentioned before, a shrug means something. Shaking the head while responding, either a no or that's why I said we have to be psychologists. Because the body language teaches us a lot about people. So I hope I've been helpful to you.
Yes, thank you so much. One more thing when you were talking about like jumping into the most important questions when you have not sufficient time to continue the interview. How would you know how long the interview will last? Do you practice your interview with somebody before?
Yes, we did that. I did that. We did that. But again, inevitably, the actual interview inevitably is longer. Because when you're practicing with someone, it's a semi-artificial situation. It is someone whom you know, number one, from your office, from your section. uh, they're not going to extrapolate on a lot of issues. They're going to give you the formal, okay? In the real world, people don't adhere to that. People, as I said before, want to give you an answer, but they want to deviate on an issue that is maybe marginal to the answer, but important for you to write down. You see what I mean? You got to keep that pencil and pad. I think it's very important. When I did my book based on my ethnographic study, I kept my notes as I was interviewing, and my notes were often more interesting than the formal interviews. Mm-hmm. So it's a good experience. I mean, interviewing is an art. It's an art. I hope I've given you some things to think about and what you needed.
Yes, yes, you gave me exactly what I needed. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. So, how many